Take everything you want and let nothing stand in your way. That is the path of greed. If you end up enjoying this video, don't forget to give it a like and leave a comment below too. This is easily one of the most powerful combat builds I have made, so if you're looking to walk the waste without fear, then keep on watching. It was obvious from the start that greed would betray her sooner or later. He held no loyalty to anyone, and openly admitted he couldn't be trusted. With a sizable chunk of her funds spent though, he was hired, and could be relied on for a while. As long as the money kept flowing, he would keep fighting. As a captain, he wasn't necessarily the best leader, but he always seemed to get his men the best loot at the end of every fight. Not only did his men have a knack for picking the battlefield clean, but they also seemed to be able to repair the discarded weapons and armour that the other squads had left behind. This meant that Greed's squad started out with bare bones gear, but ended up all suited up in ramshackle suits of power armour, and with the most advanced guns that could be crafted. In time, he was getting his men to salvage enough gear, but his side deals were paying out just as much as what he had been hired for. The best gear was always on friendlies though, which led to a suspiciously high number of apparently unintentional friendly fire incidents taking place. Keeping suspicion low meant that he was having to limit the amount of money he could make, and this was starting to irritate him. When Lust spoke to him of rebellion, he saw an opportunity to make himself one hell of a profit. He agreed to help secure victory for Lust, but secretly began working on his own agenda. If he was going to betray one employer, he may as well betray the second too. He begins stockpiling weapons and ammo away from the other captains, ensuring that supplies are running short. This meant that the others had to rely on his men scavenging additional equipment for them, which of course came at a cost. After making enough money to retire on 10 times over, he decided he would end things and make a break for it. All the captains were keeping an eye on one another, and the only way he could get out alive was to start the rebellion early. He was able to gather enough soldiers from each squad together to serve his purpose. When they arrived, he gave each of the men one of his own handcrafted laser rifles, and instructed them that they needed to secure the armory before the fighting started, to ensure things went smoothly. He waited for them to take down the guards and make their way inside the armory, before detonating the self-destruct function he had hidden away in each rifle. The explosion was loud enough to be heard all throughout the compound, and the first soldiers on the scene saw the sight of soldiers from all the Sin squads dead alongside their own. After it was radioed in, he made sure to send a message to his own squad to defend his own stash. The last thing he wanted was to lose out on more loot than he had already had to sacrifice. He then rushed back to the other captains and told them that they were under attack and that the rebellion had been uncovered, claiming that his entire squad was killed trying to hold off the attackers and give them time to retaliate. The other captains rushed into action, gearing up and readying their men to fight. Greed made sure to instruct them of the best places to attack first, in order to break up the enemy, and obviously these locations would give him and his men a clear path to walk straight out the front door with the least resistance. He lets the other captains leave before him, claiming he needs to rearm himself, and uses the opportunity to grab whatever valuables he could find locked away in the other captains' lockers. After this, he slipped away and rejoined with his men, but was shocked to see that they were only at half strength. Apparently one of the other captains had opened fire and sent men to attack them. Fearing that his entire plan had been uncovered, he ordered an immediate fighting retreat. He and his men suited up in power armour, carried whatever weapons they could, and began storming through the base, mercilessly cutting down anyone who ran up to them, no matter what side they were on. The fighting seemed to be going far worse than Greed had originally anticipated, and they had to take several different routes, leading to a few of his men dying, and therefore meaning he had to leave some of the hull behind. In a desperate attempt to escape before losing anything else, he heads straight to the command centre, knowing of a secret exit hidden there. Upon arriving, he finds the room suspiciously empty at first glance. Not having time to work out why, he instead opens the escape tunnel, and orders his men to head down and get out as fast as they can. He waited until all of them were out of sight before he tried to make his own way down. As he steps forward, he finds that someone is lying on the ground, grasping at his armoured leg. The man lying on the floor was Pride, but he looked near death, the side of his face partially caved in. Greed raised his other leg and prepared to step down on the man's head and finish him off, but was interrupted by the sound of an explosion down the tunnel. Realising that Pride was trying to stop him from walking into a trap caused him to hesitate. Instead of killing the man, he picked him up and placed him over his shoulder. The fight out of the base was the hardest of Greed's life. He ruthlessly cleared every hallway he walked through, and most men ran away from him, rather than fight against the blood-soaked metal giant. He eventually makes it out of the base, and puts his suit's servos to full use, sprinting at top speed away from the area, and clearing plenty of distance to ensure his safety for the time being. Losing his men meant that he had lost his haul, but he knew that the man over his shoulder was his best chance of making money. If he could keep him alive, that was. Greed has Strength 4, Perception 3, and Endurance of 6, Charisma 3, Intelligence at 10, Agility 2, and Luck 1. Greed is smart enough to know that he can't allow himself to become too weak if he wants to ensure his survival. A Strength of 4 will help us get to all the perks we need, and help with our carry capacity. Perception is at 3 for this build. Greed has found it's better to plan out situations instead of relying on looking for context cues and specific things that are out of place. Endurance is our second highest stat at 6. Greed sure as hell doesn't like getting shot, but he spent many years working as a merc, and at some point you find out just how many bullets you can take before you go down. A Charisma of 3 is essential for our perk choices, but also suits the character quite well. He may not be that charming, but he can normally make money talk for him. Intelligence is our primary stat, sitting at 10. Greed is a genius, but he's also smart enough to not flaunt this fact. Having a good mind will serve him better than any combat training, and we will make good use of all the intelligence perks available to us. Agility and luck are both very low for this build, and agility only has a bonus point for the purpose of perks. Greed isn't the most agile guy around, and he sure as hell isn't lucky. Situations normally turn out far worse than he could imagine, and he's always left having to think his way out of things. The essential perks of this build are Heavy Gunner, Rifleman, Gunslinger, Commando, and Lone Wanderer. We have all 4 gun-related damage perks for this build, and this is a critical part of playing as Greed. He isn't the sort of guy who wants to have to pick and choose between different guns, and will instead make sure he's capable with any weapon he picks up. Try to level these fairly evenly where you can, but obviously prioritise the ones you use the most. Lone Wanderer is an insanely powerful perk, and one that will make Greed a character who can be played on any difficulty without too much of a challenge. One of the biggest advantages of this perk will be to boost our carry capacity, which will let us carry around plenty of guns with us wherever we go. The recommended perks of this build are Armourer, Gun Nut, Science, and Nerd Rage. Armourer, Gun Nut, and Science give us access to nearly every modding option in the game, giving us full customization with our weapons and armour. Think carefully about which of these you want to prioritise, however, as it will depend heavily on what gear you have at the time. As we are a 10 intelligence build, it makes sense for us to go for Nerd Rage. This is great for ensuring our survival in tough fights, giving us a ton of boost when our health drops too low, including slowing down time. This slow time effect in particular is great for giving us a moment to work out the best course of action to take. The role-playing perks I decided to include with this build are Locksmith, Hacker, and Cap Collector. Locksmith and Hacker are going to help represent Greed's greed. He won't want any locks holding him back from getting his hands on whatever loot he can find. Cap Collector ties into the network of deals Greed had going during the pre-war days. He knows how to deal with merchants, and always gets the best deal. Faction shouldn't be of a concern when playing as Greed. You don't care who you're working for. All you should be worrying about is how much you're getting paid and what you can get out of every deal. Lone Wanderer means that you will want to travel alone. However, I would suggest sending any potential companions to your settlements. Greed treats people more like objects, and he will want to collect the different in-game followers, even if he won't want to spend much time with them. When playing this build, you will want to have a vast array of different guns to hand at all times. You can wield any firearm effectively, so make sure to have a good bit of variety when travelling. I find that laser and plasma weapons are particularly helpful, due to them being able to be modded out in a bunch of different ways, but the best weapon for me was simply an automatic assault rifle. The armour I wore for this build was the Black Ops chest piece, Protector's arm guards, Mantis left greave, and Wastelander's right leg, all worn over the top of road leathers. These are all legendary armour pieces that can be bought from vendors around the wastes, but don't feel like you necessarily have to go for these. Instead, just try and stick to the rough aesthetic I have going, and see what pieces you come across. You will also want at least one suit of power armour, although preferably more. Greed is a skilled fighter both in and out of power armour, but sometimes it's smarter to suit up before a fight. I was using a full set of titanium T60 while testing the build, but focused more on just having the best suit you can make, rather than aiming for a specific look. Greed plays as a fast and smart combat master. Act accordingly in every fight and switch between your weapons to suit the moment. If you're getting charged, make sure to have a shotgun or plasma thrower at the ready. If an enemy is hiding behind cover at a distance, then maybe use a sniper rifle. And if you need to clear out a mass group, then nothing works better than a trusty assault rifle. I would recommend using big guns whilst in power armour and smaller arms whilst in your regular attire, as this tends to look a little better and helps with inventory management. Other than this though, just go with whatever works best. For roleplaying, just take whatever you want. It doesn't matter if you have to earn it, steal it, or take it from someone's corpse. Do whatever it takes to get your hands on everything you feel like having. Thanks to all of you for watching this build. I sincerely hope that you enjoyed it, and I hope you enjoy playing as the character. He's an absolute beast, and I had to ramp up the difficulty to very hard, just to capture some good footage, so I assure you he's even stronger than he looks. If you liked this video, then give it a like. If you're new around here, then comment, and if you want some more great content right now, then click on one of the on-screen links.